All right, everybody, we're going to get started with our next speaker. It is my great pleasure to introduce Danielle Peterson, who is OCRA's Director of Education. Danielle is a licensed clinical social worker and an oncology certified social worker. She's worked alongside people affected by cancer for over 10 years and is passionate about helping those diagnosed and their loved ones access and understand the information that they need to be resilient and feel empowered. Danielle achieved her Master's of Social Science Administration at Case Western's Mandel School of Applied Social Science and her Bachelor of Social Work at Huntington University. She has extensive experience providing direct service to people of all ages and various cancer diagnoses at both local and national cancer advocacy organizations. Her research has focused on the unique needs of young adults with cancer, as well as narrative and art-based interventions focused on meaning making. With experience teaching in social work, higher education, she is passionate about helping healthcare students develop a patient-centered, whole person, and interdisciplinary approach to care. And she's also a wonderful human. So take it away, Danielle. Thank you so much.
Hello. Oh, here I am. Hi. I just want to say thank you for being here. I am so honored to be standing here in front of all of you. I've been watching the presentations and seeing how you're interacting with all of this new information that you're getting, and I'm so inspired. Like our last speaker said, this is an incredibly powerful group, very insightful, very smart, well-informed group of patients. And so I'm just so thankful to walk you through something that's going to take our brains in a little bit of a different direction. I know you're getting a lot of hard science and a lot of really important information. And today, for just these 40 minutes that I have with you, we're going to do some experiential learning and some self-reflection. But these are always just going to be invitations for you. These are just invitations. So you get to be where you want to be in these next 40 minutes and do what feels right for you. But what I will invite you to today is to consider a unique definition of what thriving means to you. I love the star shirts. You have survive and you have thrive right underneath it, and that's going to be what we're going to focus on. And I'm going to be curious to learn, what do those words mean to you? Because each of you have a unique definition, especially to what thriving means. We're going to explore that. I'm going to give you an opportunity to self-assess. I have colored pencils and worksheets, so we're going to have a lot of fun, and you're going to get to be creative today, especially to think about where you're at now and where you might want to be in the next 6 months or so. And then identify strategies to help you move toward your unique definition of thriving. And then I think what's really going to be foundational and key for really overcoming any challenge in life is to have a growth mindset and to understand the key concepts of self-compassion. So that's where we're going to end today. Just a little bit about me, and Connie, thank you so much for that introduction. But I do like to just be upfront that I don't come to this space with a personal experience. I do come to it with from education, from the social work background, and then being in oncology social work for over 10 years. And I've worked with people with all different types of cancer diagnoses, from pediatric to all ages, and family dynamics. And I've been really grateful to have that career trajectory. And I'm also a social work educator, so that's part of this being experiential. I'm used to being in front of people who get a little bit tired and sleepy after hearing somebody talk, so hopefully I'll keep that to a minimum. I also want to acknowledge that I have an incredible amount of privilege. And so you can look at me, and I am white, I'm cisgender, I'm straight, I'm a citizen, I'm highly educated, I'm middle class. And so I don't want to assume that I know or understand everybody's perspective. And so I think that's really important, because if I have a microphone and I get to share what I think is important, I want you to know it comes through my filter. And I try to be responsible to be culturally humble, but I can't assume that I know all things for all people, nor should I. So I invite you to really challenge whatever I might say and really think about what it means for you and what feels right for you. And I really want to empower you to do that, and I'd be happy to have dialogues about that, because I'm fascinated about that, and I want everyone to feel like they belong in the spaces that we create together. Yeah, you're welcome. Ultimately, even though I don't have a personal experience with cancer at this time in my life, I am a fellow human with my own struggles and my own challenges, and I do believe that humans have an innate capacity to move toward growth and resilience. And it's honestly working with people with cancer that have convinced me of that. You really just can't shake me of that anymore because I'm just convinced. And so I love to help people find that for themselves. And again, I'm really drawn to seeing how that unfolds for people because it is really unique and every person does that differently. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So let's start with just chatting amongst yourselves. If you can turn to maybe another person or two people, what do you think? Let's get the party started by discussing what do you think the difference is? Is there a difference between surviving and thriving? I'm wondering if this sounds familiar to the conversations that you've had, and maybe not, and that's totally okay, but I went to the powers that be, not actually Google, Microsoft Bing this time. That's what my computer had. And I put in surviving and thriving, and here's what I got. Surviving, continuing to exist, right? Remaining intact, to continue to live or exist despite a dangerous event or time. How applicable, right? Remaining alive, especially after the death of another or others. And in my years of working with people with cancer, the people who have not survived from the disease that you have are they're never far from your mind. And I'm assuming that you all know those folks, and they are in your heart, and you carry them with you. And there's a lot to be said even about survivor's guilt. That's not the topic of this conversation, but I do think surviving, and it's the reason why it deserves a spot on your t-shirts, is because surviving should be celebrated, and we should always be working toward that. So this isn't a time to compare survive and thrive and try to minimize surviving. Surviving is really important, right? But it is a different flavor from thriving. And I think that that's part of the theme of this conference even, and I know it's been woven through the time that you've shared, because there's something about this. Let's look at those definitions. Prosperous, growing and flourishing, continuing to be successful, strong, and healthy. That one sticks at me a little bit because what I'm going to challenge with that is I think that's great, but I think that we all define that differently. And I really invite you to use those words if those work for you, but to use other words if those are a better definition for you of what thriving means. Characterized by success or prosperity, same thing. But what intrigues me about thriving is growth. It's movement. It's moving toward a goal, something that's important to you. And it could be about physical health. And we've talked a lot about physical health today. But there's so much more to each and every one of us than our physical health. And so growth could be toward other parts of our health. And so you're going to get an opportunity to explore that as well. On your tables, I passed out some handouts, and they're not as organized as I wish they were, so I want to apologize first. They are a little deceiving, but in the top right, is that right corner, you're going to look for the wheel that says last 2 months. Can you find, and is there enough at your table? Let's see, yeah. It should say last 2 months. You don't want the one that says thriving, and you don't want the one that says pre-diagnosis. If you need a last 2 months for someone at your table, let me know. I'll be sure to run it to you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. This is not my idea, so I don't want to take credit for this, but we're going to talk about the dimensions of wellness. And there's typically around, it depends on where you go, but 6 to 10 dimensions of wellness. And thank you. You can just rifle through those. Thanks. So what I'm going to have you do, and also I'm going to pass out some colored pencils. Thank you. Right here. I want you to assess, think back to the last 2 months. So where does that take us? February, December? December, right? First week of December, last 2 months. And I want you to think about rating yourself with, I'm going to pass out some colored pencils here. You can use your pens as well. So this is like, think of this as a pizza, and the crust is all the way to the outer edge. Don't be deceived by those 3 lines. Your lines don't have to go to one of those lines that are already pre-drawn. Your line can go really inside or and half of one of those lines. Don't be confined by the boundaries that are on the worksheet. You get to decide where your assessment is. So there are 8 different categories, and I'm going to pop up on a slide definitions of those categories. But I really encourage you to define those categories for yourself. So only look at the slide if you feel like you need help defining those categories. Otherwise, choose what the definition means to you. So if I have any type A or people perfectionists, I'm going to see a lot of eyes go up on that screen, which is fine. If you want to say, what's the right way to define this? You can look at that, but I invite you to just think, what does it mean to be physically healthy? What does it mean to be socially healthy to me? And I expect in that pizza pie slice, some of these, you're going to color in kind of close to the crust because it's really full and you've done a lot of work in that area that's really important to you. And some of these might not have much color at all. And that's okay. I would love to talk to you if you fill up that whole pizza pie. Like, what is your secret? Let's figure that out because we need to tap into that. But try to assess where you've been in the last 2 months. And I know that's a little limiting. There was a really good question here. Is it low if it's not important? I think that's one way to approach this, to be honest with you. But more is like, where do you think, have you spent much time in that area over the last 2 months? Have you put much energy in there? Why you've put much energy in there? It could be because you don't feel like it's important. That's potentially one way to look at that. Or it is important to you, but you haven't been able to find a way or the resources to make that happen. So it's up to you how you want to define that. But that's a really good question. Just where have you been putting your energy? Do you think you're thriving in that area? Last 2 months. Now, what do you want your pizza pie to look like? What does thriving look like to you? And there might be a category, because that question's come up a couple times, that isn't really important to your definition of thriving. That's okay. Thriving doesn't have to mean that all of the pizza pie slices are all the way filled up. But what does it mean to you? Do you want certain areas of your pizza to grow? Okay. Why don't you take those 2 dimensions of wellness wheels and put them side to side? Put them side to side so you can compare them. And I'll let you reflect on, your takeaways for that. Like any good teacher, I've given you extra credit. We don't have a chance to do that today, but you'll notice there's another worksheet on your table, and if you don't have it, I'll make sure to get it to you, called pre-diagnosis. This is an exercise I've done with people with cancer for a long time. It's always been really insightful because there are obviously there are real impacts of the diagnosis that can make those pizza pie slices shrink. But what can sometimes be surprising to people is that their pizza pie slices, some of them have grown since their diagnosis. And so until they've really assessed and looked at where was I before I was diagnosed to where I am now, it can be really illuminating. So I encourage you to take that worksheet with you and do that on your own, or with a counselor if you have that, or with a trusted friend or family member, because it can be really insightful and helpful. Okay, so now I want you to select one pizza pie slice that you want to be able to grow, that you want to thrive in. Only one, and it doesn't have to be your lowest. It's the one that's just most important to you or you're most motivated to maybe work on. What could you do to grow that pizza pie slice? And then I have a little notes box for you to write down what you're learning and some strategies. So write down your favorite, because how one person might want to improve their physical health could be different from that other person's, right? So write down the ones that are important to you that you want to keep in mind. And then if you have time, discuss ways that you might hold yourself accountable or hold each other accountable, depending on your relationships with one another, and solutions for overcoming any barriers, because this is not always easy to be working toward these goals. So what's happening right here, right now, is like the most important thing about this conference. So I really hope that if you haven't finished your conversations about this or your connections, that you don't leave here without making more time and space to connect to the people in this room, because this is the best part of the whole thing. But I do only have 5 minutes left, and so I just want to wrap up our conversations together. I would just say that thriving doesn't always feel great. Because if we go back to the definition of what thriving is, it means growth and it means movement. And if you're a human being, change is really hard and effort is hard. So at your tables, you were all talking about the effort that it would take to make movement to grow your pizza pie slices. There's a reason why your pizza pie slice isn't fully full, because it's hard, right? So I will say that thriving doesn't always feel easy, comfy, or happy. Feelings are deceiving. Feelings are really important. We need to listen to them. They tell us important things. But, for me, I do not like to exercise, but I can't trust the emotion of not liking to exercise, of being good for me and telling me whether or not I should get up and ride that stationary bike in the morning or not, right? I have to remember what my goal is. So I also think that thriving, although it's a little deceiving too, with I'm giving you like a concrete circle to fill in, it's not that simple where there's like an end goal or a destination to thriving. It's always forward movement. It's a journey. It's a process. I think as humans, we're always working on that, right? Like focusing on being focused on the process instead of the product. At least for me, that's a really big one that I have to work on. So thriving is a state of being, not a destination. Anyone heard of growth mindset before? Yeah, great. So this is Carol Dweck's work. There's some really good information about growth mindset, and it's all over the internet too if you want to look at it. But it's fascinating when you think about the power of your self-talk to make movement toward the goals that you have in terms of thriving. I wonder if you could take a look at these slides. I know some of the words are a little tiny. Where do you see yourself falling into these categories? Do you tend to have a growth mindset where when you face challenges, you see it as opportunity? Or do you tend to find yourself in the place that if you're not good at it, why try? I'm either good or bad. It's just black and white, right? Like, I'm just not good at exercising. I should just give up right now. Why am I trying? That's the fixed mindset. Why try something new? You can't teach old dogs new tricks, right? If that's your mindset, moving toward thriving is going to be a little difficult, right, for you. So or I love this one, when I'm frustrated, I give up. You were all just at a table talking about how hard it can be to move toward these areas of thriving, and I bet you've been frustrated. Why isn't that pizza pie slice more filled than I'd want it to be? So what happens when you get frustrated is the option to just be like, well, I just can't do this, right? So growth mindset's the opposite. I like to try new things. My effort and attitude determine my abilities. My effort and my attitude determine my abilities. It's not the actual outcome. It's your effort and your attitude. You can learn to do anything that you want. It's really powerful. So think about that. Try to be more aware of your self-talk in regards to growth mindset. And secondly, I'm going to read these for you because they're small, but this is just an image I pulled from the internet about self-compassion. One of the leading experts in self-compassion is Kristen Neff. She's a psychologist and has done a lot of research in this area and how important it is and how little of it that we give ourselves. We're happy to give compassion to our neighbor and the person sitting next to us. We're not really open to giving that self-compassion to ourselves. So in the context of the conversation we've had today, I really like a couple of these quotes. I have stuff to work on, but I am worth the work. I may not be where I want to be yet, but that doesn't mean I won't get there. I love that word yet. Challenge yourself to put the word yet at the end of the sentence. I'm not good at exercising yet. It's powerful. I like this one too. I am not meant to be perfect. Your pizza pie slices, it's unrealistic to have them all filled up all of the time. You're human. Okay. We didn't get a chance, I want to be respectful of time, so we didn't get a chance for you to come up with your unique definition, but I invite you to do this on your own, either while you're at the conference or on your way home and you're traveling, or maybe once you find yourself back at home base. But when you come up with this definition, consider letting it include your key dimensions of wellness. Choose the ones that are important to you. Thriving, to thrive, that's a pretty ambiguous term. So break it down and be a little bit more specific about, for you, what would thriving mean, and include concepts related to a growth mindset and self-compassion. And then I encourage you to not lose that definition and maybe write it somewhere or put it in your phone or look at it every 2 months or so. And where am I at with this definition? Am I moving toward that? And since thriving is not a destination, that definition can change over time as well. You get to change the definition whenever it no longer serves you or fits you. If you want to learn more about OCRA, I'm at the exhibitor table. I know many of you are familiar with the Ovarian Cancer Research Alliance, but if you'd like to learn more or sign up for emails, I'm happy to share about that. There are support groups and a lot of peer support that OCRA does, and I'd love to stay in contact. So please feel free to reach out, and I think that's